Hey there, I'm Brandon, and this is the Dirt Church Devotional. Have you ever heard somebody use the phrase, a coincidence is when God chooses to remain anonymous? I think that's a pretty good phrase. I like it. There's a great story in 2 Kings chapter 7 about a coincidence that took place. Now, the setup is in chapter 6, and basically what was going on is the king of Syria had surrounded Samaria, which was the capital of Israel at the time, and put them under siege and was trying to destroy them. And they'd been there a long time, and the result was that there was this huge famine in the land. The famine was so bad that prices had skyrocketed. People were buying and selling like donkey heads and bird dung and just nasty stuff. Anyways, the prices were crazy. It made the king of Israel so mad, he decided he was going to kill Elisha the prophet. So he sends a guy out there to kill him, and then he comes along himself. And anyway, when they get there, Elisha says to the king, he says, look, by this time tomorrow, siege is going to be lifted, the famine is going to be over, prices are going to be fine, everything's going to be good. That's essentially what he said. And the guy that the king had sent is standing there. He says, you know what, even if God opened up the floodgates of heaven, even if he opened up the windows of heaven, that couldn't happen. So Elisha says, look, you're going to see it, but you're not going to get any of it. So that's the setup. Now, in chapter 7, we read about these four guys sitting outside the wall of Samaria. They're on the outside. They're on the outside because they're lepers. Being lepers, they're unclean, and they can't go in among the general population. They're sitting out there starving. And they look at each other and they said, you know what? We're going to die if we stay out here. We're starving to death. We're going to die if we go inside the city. Why don't we just go to the Syrian camp? Let's go to the enemy camp and turn ourselves in. If they kill us, they kill us. If not, well, then we live. Crazy idea. And so they go. And as they're going, get this, God causes the Syrian army to hear the footsteps of unnumbered, a huge amount of soldiers coming, and it freaks them out, and they run away, terrified that the king of Israel has hired some other army to fight against them. They run away, they leave all their weapons, they leave their tents, they leave their clothes, they leave their money, they leave their food, they leave everything. This is a huge army. And so those four men, they go in and they start eating and collecting stuff, and pretty soon they say, wow, it's not, you know what, this is a day to celebrate. We shouldn't be hoarding this to ourselves. So they go and they tell at the wall of Samaria, they tell them, hey, the army's gone and everything is good. All right, so then long story short, people go out and they get all the food and they trample the guy that had said it wouldn't be possible. Now here's the coincidence. The army just happened to flee. The army just happened to leave. They heard what sounded like an enemy army coming towards them. But we know it's not a coincidence because Elisha had foretold it. He said, God is going to deliver you. This is what I want you to catch, though. It was four men, four outsiders, four guys that were leprous, that couldn't go among the general population. It was their obedience, and they probably didn't even realize they were being obedient. They had this crazy idea. Look, we're going to die if we go in. We're going to die if we go. Let's just go and see what happens. The question from me to you is this. How many times do you dismiss an idea because it just sounds so crazy? You think, well, maybe it's just a pizza I had last night. And I'm going to tell you, it might just be the answer from God. It might sound completely ridiculous, and it's a danged if I do, danged if I don't situation. Take a moment, pray, trust God, step out. God will use anyone who will trust him and walk in obedience. Even you, even lepers, even me. And you know what? There's no evidence that those lepers ever knew anything about the prophecy. There's no evidence that those lepers knew anything about where it began. They only knew how it ended because they stepped out and they walked there, and God used them. If they hadn't stepped out and walked, God wouldn't have had those four men to amplify the sound. Okay, yeah, God can do anything he wants, but he chooses to use people like you and me, people like outsiders, people that nobody else would think much of. Chew on that. We'll talk to you next time.